How's it going, guys? I'm gonna walk around and talk to you guys about plants that self-seed, the plants that multiply in your garden. I'm making this video for multiple reasons, but to talk to you about how you can prevent plants from spreading and taking over, but to also just kind of educate people and show you guys what I've learned recently about how some of these plants can grow like crazy. And so this right here is one of my top 5 perennial plants, probably. I mean, maybe even my number 1 or number 2 plant. This is Little Spire Russian Sage. It's almost 3 foot tall right now, probably 2.5 foot tall. It's just about starting to bloom. Like I said, it's July 6th. So from July all the way to late October, this plant is literally gonna keep on blooming and get better and better. But this plant, I figured out that last year when it was blooming, it produced seeds. And so these are seedlings. I've got seedlings all over my mound, and I love Russian sage because it only takes one plant to give you something very noticeable and something that stands out in the landscaping. But that means that every one of these seedlings has the potential to get even bigger than this. Sometimes if you get a seedling, it won't be true to the parent, and it might even grow more seeds than the parent plant, because this plant could have been selected to not grow too many seedlings, such as some of the yarrows. But then you could get a seedling right here, and this plant could go to seed and produce even more seedlings than this plant right here. But anyways, guys, this is Russian sage, so that's plant number 1 that can self seed in your landscaping. Plant number 2, and basically, most plants that flower, that produce seeds, have the ability to reproduce or to produce seedlings. This penstemon here flowered amazingly and for a pretty long time, and it still got flowers on it. Penstemon, especially some of the old varieties like Husker Red, will produce hundreds of seedlings potentially. So I am going to be trimming off these flower stalks. Plant number 2, and yes, I am just going along, ain't I? This is Stachy's Humolo. This plant right here is in the lamb's ear family. As soon as these plants are faded, like this one over here, they didn't last too incredibly long because of the heat wave that I think stunted the flowers or whatnot. Like this plant right here. I'm going to be trimming this all the way down to about right here. So then you're going to be left with all them nice leaves. It's going to reflush and potentially even rebloom once I trim this back. And I'm even going to be talking about some other plants that you might not be expecting. Some of the ornamental grasses and stuff. This is Muhlenbergia grass. I sold a bunch this year. And check this out, guys. These are seedlings. That's from the Muhlenbergia. And then I got 2 seedlings there. And I think I've even had a couple other ones pop up. So Muhlenbergia grass is not immune to growing from seed. What's one of the top probably 5 selling perennials in the United States and probably other countries as well? I'd have to say salvia would be one of those top 5 selling. There's a million varieties. I know that you guys know what salvia is. There's even the annual plant varieties. That right there is probably a seedling. And look at this. I got a seedling there, a seedling there. This one has wider leaves than the usual. But who knows, maybe it'll grow out of that. That could be a seedling, I'm not too sure, but I've got a seedling there. I've got a seedling down here. This plant right here is the midnight, what is it? It don't really matter. But anyways, I've got this one here. I've got another variety over there, and I'm pretty darn sure that seedling came from that plant. And that seedling right there came from the one over there, as well as a couple other ones. Those have been true to, like, the flowers have been true to the parent plant. And that's not always true, especially if you've got a pink one over here, a purple one over there, you could end up having a white one. Allium. This is Allium Millennium, and I'm going to walk around, show you guys some on my mound over that direction. Allium Millennium, those plants definitely reproduce from seedlings. There's some that don't reproduce from seedlings as much, but Millennium sure does grow tons of seedlings. So you can trim off the flowers as soon as it's spent or a little bit after, and that should prevent seedlings from popping up like crazy. Nepidas. This right over here is a Nepida from Chartreuse on the Loose. This is a seedling. Can you believe that? It's got some flowers on it right now, but it already flowered primarily this spring. Like I said, it's July, so a lot of them spring bloomers or even late spring bloomers are just about done. But this is a seedling that popped up this spring, or maybe last fall. This is another Nepeta variety that could potentially grow. And this is another seedling. This is another Chartreuse on the Loose Nepeta seedling. You can have those grow. Of course, you can have some of the probably older varieties of Shasta daisies grow from seed. And then this right here is redhead grass. So this redhead grass grew tons and tons of almost foot-long seed heads that were just monstrous. And you can see, check out all that grass that's popping up. And I just removed a whole bunch. And over here, I've got tons and tons of seedlings from that grass. And in some areas lower on the mound, like over here, where I had these 3 giant ones, these grasses were incredibly pretty and healthy last year. But now I know you have to trim the seed heads off of the little redhead grass, you know, or else this will happen. That'll potentially take over your garden. There's a ton of grasses that are sterile that won't produce babies from all the seed heads, but this would be very easy to just remove the seed heads, and now I know to remove those moving forward. Another plant, and yes, I'm literally going from plant to plant, because every single plant, like I said, their goal is to reproduce. And especially if you've got a bunch of the same type of plant or different types, who even knows, you can have some cross-pollination happening and you can have some babies popping up. So this over here is the Sassy Summer Sunset Yarrows. These right here are really pretty. Last year they rebloomed for me. You've got, you know, fresh flowers and you got some older flowers. Look at the size of the flowers on this plant. And yet again, talking about how plants grow from seed. This plant right here is a seedling from the Sassy Summer Sunset Yarrow. I did not plant this plant right here. And it's flowering, it's pretty. And I have not gotten too many seedlings. There's 2 more right there. And there's a couple other small ones that have popped up. Like down there. This one I planted, and you can see it just rained. The rain makes its way to the bottom of this mound here. The one that's the driest is the happiest and healthiest. And I've even got a seedling right, or actually this might be just a piece of one that I planted. But this right here could be a seedling from the Moonshine Yarrow. This one's been blooming for well over a month for sure. And I had to move some of these yarrows a little higher up on the mound because they want it to be nice and dry. Carl Forster grass is a grass that I've not witnessed grow from seed. And this plant right here is in the thistle family, but I planted it. It's Echinops. This plant for sure is going to get special treatment. And that means I'm going to be removing these flowers as soon as they start to turn brown before they go viable. And I might even throw those seeds in the wood so they don't take over. Echinops or globe thistle is a really pretty blue plant, but you should not let it go to seed. Look at these Nepetas here. Cone flowers. These are seedlings. Why would I plant those next to that ornamental tree? Well, I wouldn't, and I didn't. Those grew from these cone flowers right here. Cone flowers can seed like crazy, especially if you get the most basic cone flower varieties. I've already removed a handful of seedlings over here, but you guys should see the mound that's on the other side of my house. That thing, you know, I got a patch of cone flowers and they went crazy, you know. So let's walk over here. I got a few more plants that I want to mention. Look at Choco Canyon daylilies flowering today. Every single day I got a new flower. These right here, these are the kings or the queens of self-seeding. A couple of plants actually right here in a row. But this right here is the Liatris or Blazing Star or Gay Feather. These plants right here I trim every single year as soon as they're done flowering. These were extremely happy and healthy. And the flowers aren't as thick as some years for whatever reason. Maybe it's just because of the amount of rain, who knows. Really, really pretty, like fireworks. And, you know, I talked about these a million times this year. And they're looking extremely, extremely pretty. making this mound look, you know, amazing. But these plants right here will produce thousands of seeds and hundreds of thousands of seedlings. And I've already trimmed the flowers off of this lupine, which is like somewhat of a biennial, or like it lasts like 3 to 5 years, 2 to 5 years, they say lupine does. And lupine, if you watched any of my videos earlier in the season, you'll know that I didn't plant a single lupine other than the first plant. And those spread like crazy. I've got thousands of seedlings on this mound. Black-eyed Susans and Gaillardia. Gaillardia, check out these seedlings down here. Those are Gaillardia seedlings. Gaillardia is a great long blooming plant. I mean, it was blooming weeks and weeks ago, and this plant will continue growing, new flowers, new stalks, and it just came all the way down to the bottom of this mound here. It's not the sturdiest because when you have that many flowers, it just, I mean, doesn't do so great as far as standing up. But when you have that many flowers, it flowers until fall. Balloon flowers, these produce really pretty flowers and stuff. This one's getting blocked by the crazy daisy here. It just rained, so these are looking a little sad. They will perk up. But even the balloon flowers, those grow from seed. At the end of this video, I'm probably going to talk about some plants that won't really grow from seed that much, like, you know. And you might wonder, so why am I selling plants that could spread? Every single plant nearly has the ability to grow from seed. Check out these, and look at that puddle. That's crazy. After watering plants 3 or 4 times a day, I got puddles out here, you know, relieving some stress and time off of my hands so that I can focus on weeding. And look at all the weeds on that mound. But I'll talk about how half of those plants over there aren't weeds, and I'm leaving a ton of them to see what happens. These plants right here, I made a video talking about the Stachy's Homolo, and sadly within the next couple days I'm going to be trimming off all those, and maybe I'll get a reflush. But look at this, I've got alliums here, and I'm going to show you guys up close. I've already weeded around these things before this year, and clearly I'm going to do a ton of weeding, you know, here soon, and I got to put mulch down. But those are all seedlings. I can get hundreds or thousands of seedlings from the allium if I don't trim off the things. Firefly, peach, sky yarrows have not produced a single seedling for me yet, but then I think the last couple years I have been trimming off all the old flowers. This is Husker Red Penstemon. This plant right here is going to get seriously trimmed back, if not removed. And then these are Nepitas right here. These are getting trimmed back probably today, but then they have flowers on them, so maybe I'll leave these two because they're pretty. And then this coneflower has produced a couple seedlings, but look at this, guys. This over here, you don't want that growing in your landscaping, but these are Penstemon seedlings. That's what it looks like, a little bit more grown. But this Penstemon right here, really pretty plant, needs trimmed back after it's done blooming. And then over here, last year I had some big plants of these, and every single year I've had this plant. This is Anise Hyssop Black Adder, or Agustache, or Agustache. This is one of the best, if not the best, pollinator plants that you can possibly plant for your bees and butterflies. This plant gets like almost probably 2.5 to 3 foot tall, and has the prettiest blue flowers, like not blue, but like kind of maybe bluish, kind of the same color as this annual salvia. But these are 2 plants there, and you can see just the amount of seedlings that have popped up that are, you know, the Agustache or whatnot. The amount of seedlings that have popped up, they're all over the place. And then you can also see, look at this difference. This right here is the Rosy Posy or something like that, Agustache. This is the parent plant that literally gets like 2 foot tall and flowers pretty pink from July all the way till frost. And you've got these more pink colored stems and finer leaves. these right here are seedlings from this plant right here, and these are amazing plants. So I'm leaving these for sure. I'll probably pot them up, and since they're seedlings, you might have one that's exactly like this plant, but it's blue. You could have one that's white. Who even knows? You can have all kinds of variations, but chances are, if you've only have this one as a parent plant, you're gonna be stuck with the pink. But like I said, for years, I had some big black adder agustaceae over here, and every year, some of the big ones would just die for no reason. It's like a zone 5 or zone 6 plant, so it doesn't go down at very cold temperatures. It's not the easiest perennial, and such as like the pink ones over there, or the oranges, the yellows, they grow agustache as an annual. And so basically, you know, the black adder or the blue fortune or something like that is a little bit colder hardy than some of the other plants. But basically, these were not producing any seedlings for the longest time. Over there on my mound back there, I had a plant that produced one seedling, and then I had a dead one over here. So then I took that seedling and I planted it over here, and then I think it ended up dying. Or all three of these plants that I had over here, the two plants I had last year, died. And then I'm thinking what happened was that seedling, you know, produced seedlings from itself, and you have basically the same plant as the original parent plants, but basically now you've got plants that seed way heavier than the original parent plant. So this isn't exactly the black adder, you know, because it's grown from seed. The only way you're going to get the true parent plant, the same exact genetics and the same characteristics as a parent plant, is if you grow these from cuttings. And I have one left from the original parent, and the only one that's true. These are not true, but they'll probably flower the same. And who knows, they might have even better pollen for the bees, making the bees go even crazier. So like I said, I've got a ton of weeds over here, such as this right here. This stuff sucks. You do not want this plant to go to seed. This plant will go and create a fluffy seed. So the key to creating a garden, or like low maintenance or whatnot, you're gonna always have weeds popping up like I am. The key to keeping this a little bit lower maintenance, and the key to having a weed-free garden or maintaining it a lot less, is never letting these plants right here flower and then go to seed. You can almost let them go, you can let them flower like I am here, but as soon as they go to seed, you need to absolutely remove these plants. Clover spreads like crazy, 100% a weed. Do not let clover go to seed and produce viable seedlings. And, you know, or else you're gonna have some issues. All of these right here, a lot of these grasses here are annual grasses, but it just rained. I'm gonna have to go through, pull all the big weeds right here, and you know, some of these weeds have just grown like crazy with the rain in the past, you know, few days. But you know, aside from that, that's just a ton of plants that can produce seeds that are viable, that will spread through your landscaping. So like I said, keep an eye out for those. Balloon flowers will produce viable seeds. Right now is go time for removing weeds before they go to seed. This is the redhead grass. I got some potted up. I split up some original plants that are true to the parent. And so if you have a plant that goes to seed, you pretty much have to label that as a seedling of that plant. You can't label it as the original plant, depending on the variety. But morning light grass, Shenandoah grass, both of those have not produced any seedlings for me. And you know, even some of the sedums, they can even produce some seedlings. But every plant wants to reproduce. Proven Winners has a huge lineup of shrubs. A lot of shrubs don't produce seedlings, but this candy corn spirea is known to be mostly sterile, if not sterile. But the older spireas, those bushes. They're a smaller bush. But these spireas over here, you can get these plants to grow from seed in your landscaping beds, and that's why the candy corn with amazing coloration has been a great seller. But they somehow do grow these plants right here from seed, and that's how they get the new varieties. You can even grow smoke bush from seed, but they have to grow these things very, very carefully. You know, a lot of things, you can grow lilacs from seed, but some of the old varieties of plants, will grow from seed a heck of a lot more than the new varieties. But that, you know, that can also mean that the pollinators aren't going to love the new varieties of plants as much as some of the old. But I'm more so focused on the foliage color, on the reliability of a plant, and just the overall color and shape and size of the plants that I'm growing. I'm not too worried about, you know, the native aspect of a lot of plants, but I am also, I mean, if a plant can support wildlife better than others, then I'm going to recommend that one over the other one. But these Sunjoy barberries right here, these are supposedly 100% sterile. Rose campion, those can grow from seed. Some of the Euros, like I said, they spread. Some of them grow from seed, but then the Firefly series has been pretty much sterile for me as far as I know. And I've even had blue fescue grass grow from seed. If you guys have tried ajuga and you think it spreads like crazy, then you've probably got the seedling, the bronze beauty. But some of these new varieties, chocolate chip, I'm not sure if that one grows from seed, but I'm sure it has the ability to. And so I don't know, did you guys watch this video? What are your guys' thoughts? Have you guys had any plants that just kind of took over? If a plant takes over, and look at that little rabbit eating the weeds for me. If you guys have had like any issues with plants seeding like crazy, let me know. Tell me your stories. I'm trying to learn and stuff. Let me zoom in on this little rabbit. I'm only a couple feet away, but I've got a creeping thyme pathway that I need to weed as well. And but so if you guys are worried about plants going to seed, spreading all over, then you know, through growing all these plants, then I have experience. But just know that sometimes you've got to stay up on things. And if something flowers, if you don't want it to spread like crazy, you might have to trim it back as soon as it's done. The cone flowers keep all their seeds pretty much on the stalks, you know, throughout the winter, as well as alliums and some things like that. So removing most of the seeds is very easy. But then if you want something to spread and go crazy like the lupines or blazing stars, then, you know, then that's another plant. Like if someone wants something to, like, there's a bunch of ways of looking at things. If you want that to happen, then let me know. If you don't want it to happen, let me know. I'm trying to learn and stuff more and more every day. And that little rabbit. And but I'm growing tons of plants here. Like I said, their goal is to reproduce and to grow like crazy. Like, look at this. That one's a white, and then those are pink. That's crazy. All right, guys, I'm not going to keep talking any longer. Thanks for watching. Did anyone learn anything?